For a great cup of joe, there's one thing you should know. Your morning brew can also be playful. Buff Boy Brewing guys make the temperature rise, and you surely feel naughty when you swallow our coffee. If you want some real heat, give your mouth a fine treat. You will want some more, rest assured. Buff Boy Brewing, you can't get enough of.
It's time for The Scribble, your weekly fix of celebrity chats, bizarre stories in the news, and basic random chatter with best-selling author and syndicated radio host Jeremy Bradley. Make sure your seat is in the upright and locked position and your barf bag is securely in place. Here's Jeremy Bradley.
Thank you very much, Larson. Jeremy Bradley here. This is The Scribble. Thanks for tuning in at thescribbleshow.com and on SoundCloud and iTunes. It's another jam-packed week. I gotta say, we haven't had celebrity guests on the show for a while just because there's been so much on my mind. Really, I've got a lot to talk about. You know, the Olympics are here. The world is celebrating. I'm going to share with you my thoughts on the Olympics. Now, if you've been tuned into this show for any length of time, namely during the Summer Olympics a couple years ago in Brazil, you heard my thoughts about competing in the games. And I'm going to recap that story and see if you agree or disagree with me. And I have also taken a leap on social media. I will tell you that story coming up as well. And I also, speaking of taking things, took a vacation for the first time in, I think it was about 10 years, and I will tell you about that experience as well. And the Spice Girls are back. This revival of everything from back in the day. Music groups, TV shows, everything. I'll chime in with my thoughts on that. So lots to talk about today. And there's even other things on the list if we get around to it. I just know how much I like to ramble some days. So we're going to start with those four, all right? We're going to get into the stories right after this here on The Scribble.
Who are the Kardashians feuding with now? What did that little thug Justin Bieber do this time? Who's getting hitched? And who's headed for Splitsville? Hear the latest celebrity news and gossip every day on Entertainment Wrap-Up. The good, the bad, the ugly, but mostly the ridiculously hilarious. It's all recapped in this daily segment at entertainmentwrapup.com. Have a laugh at the expense of the rich and famous when they take themselves way too seriously. It's 3 minutes of time-wasting fun at entertainmentwrapup.com. Check out Entertainment Wrap-Up at entertainmentwrapup.com. Brought to you by Speak Free Books.
JB here on The Scribble. Again, thanks for tuning in at thescribbleshow.com and on SoundCloud and iTunes. That was just a quick break there as we get rolling here. You know, the Olympics is happening now over there in South Korea, and I didn't realize how political it was, how the Olympics is so political. Now, it wasn't until probably about 2010 we were broadcasting from Vancouver during the Winter Olympics there. And I had thought it was more about sports and competition. And one of my radio colleagues who lives in Vancouver, actually he worked at a radio station there, he was the one who told me that the Olympics is very political, and I had no idea. Now again, I didn't really, I was 8 years ago I would have been 27, so I can't say that I was entirely young, but I also just wasn't big into the world politics and that sort of a platform. So for me, I thought it was more a sporting event, and it wasn't until he started to tell me about, China and Russia and all the different controversies, let's say, with some of the countries and rivalries and how judging of those events sometimes is, favored one way or the other. And I always wondered that too when I was a kid. I always just figured, okay, I'm Canadian, so the Canadian judge would always give the Canadian figure skaters a higher mark than a country they don't like. But I just thought they wouldn't do that because it's the Olympics. It's official. It's it's a little bit more, it's legit. It's civilized. And then, as I get older now, hear about all of the different the scandals and the politics behind it all. So it really is. Now, anyway, that actually wasn't my thought about the Olympics. As if you might recall, I just mentioned a few minutes ago, I do have some thoughts about the Olympics that people often disagree with. Here we go. We have an athlete in our family who's not competing in the Olympics, but last summer competed in the Canada Summer Games. And she was on a team, and they were in this tournament competing against the rest of the country, every other province and territory in Canada. I went to a bunch of the events and to the games and watched her play, and she played her heart out, and she tried really hard. And at the end, when it was coming down to the medal rounds, and she didn't win, she came out of the dressing room to see the family, and she burst into tears and was crying and so upset. Now, they didn't get last place. They didn't do terribly. They tried their hardest, and I think it was third, but that wasn't good enough. And I've always had the opinion that, you know what, you are the best in this instance, the province, and then you're like third best in the country. That's really good. That's good. Why is that not celebrated? And it's the same thing when you go to the Olympics. I think, you've finished the race, so that's good enough. But then, I'm not a sports person, so that's when I hear from people that you don't train and compete to lose. You go there to come in first. Well, you know what? Some of these countries from, that have, I don't want to say... I was going to say shithole countries, but that's the president talking. No, I just mean that they don't have the money, they don't have the funding, they don't have the facilities, they don't have the equipment, but they train and they try their hardest. Some of them are even just happy to finish the round or the race. And you often see the people from the first heat that totally kicked ass and broke world records and things like that. They're standing on the sidelines cheering these people on and going, yeah, awesome, you did it. And to me, I think that's really what the Olympics is about, is the competition in the sport, but also just it's a chance for the countries to sort of unite. This is kind of the one thing that we all have as a globe, is the Olympics, where you can cheer on the teams. I might not be from Russia or know any Russians or Germany or know any Germans or what other country, but when you hear the stories of these people and what they've overcome to get there, that's kind of what's touching. Now, this is where I often hear from people, well, you're probably one of those people who wants everybody to get a participation medal, right? The kids are not going to have their little egos bruised. Well, I'm not saying that, but what I'm saying is you did pretty damn well if you came in third in the world. I realize you're shooting for first, right? You want gold, but third is really not that bad, right? I mean, come on. Now, I also realize that not everybody who figure skates or everybody who plays hockey goes to the Olympics. So when we say best in the world, of course that is skewed because it's best in the world based on who's competing in this, right? I could be a really, really fast runner because I do it as a hobby. I am not competing in the games, but technically that's your designation, right? As the world's fastest man or woman, because you competed at the Olympics. So nevertheless, I feel that you should be proud of your accomplishments. If you were able to, first of all, make it to the national team, that's huge. And then secondly, if you came in third, even if you came in sixth, again, that's still a world platform. That is a global platform that you have, and you did it. I mean, so again, not that my motivational speech is going to help anybody or change anybody's mind, but I still like to applaud people for their achievements, because I sure as hell know that I would not be able to compete in any Olympic event and even place 10th. I just don't have that discipline. I'm not trained. I don't do it. So I applaud everybody, and so it's going to be playing out for the next 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and I wish all of the athletes well. I'm Canadian, but our audience on the radio is American, and I spend a lot of time in the United States. But I don't favor one country or over the other. The word's not ambivalent. I really don't know. I have no honest opinion about the Olympics. I will watch. Obviously, I'll watch Canada play hockey games if I'm at home and if it's on TV when I have some time. But I'm certainly not going out of my way to watch the Olympics. Now that brings up the question then: do you pay attention to the Olympic Games? Do you watch the events? Do you just sort of glance over to the medal standings and say, oh, okay, well, my country's ranked here and that's it? Or do you pay attention? Do you know the names of the athletes? I'd love to hear from you. Send me an email, live@jbonair.com. live@jbonair.com. We're going to take a break. I've dived into Instagram. I'll tell you about that coming up in just a bit.
Ever had something to get off your chest but never had the balls to say it? That's a load of crap. SpeakFreeWithJB.com is exactly what you've been waiting for. Your chance to tell it like it is and not care what anybody else thinks. Have your say on issues of the day. Join newspaper and radio columnist Jeremy Bradley as he tells it like it is. Hundreds of thousands of people have stopped by, including some well-known celebrities who have had a chat with JB and speak candidly about what's really going on in the world. You can join them too. Have a rant or a rave. Be brave and head on over to www.speakfreewithjb.com now.
JB here, back on the Scribble. I almost said the Open Road. That's our country music show, and we are taping it right after this. So that's why I'm sort of in that zone. I'm in that mode. It's difficult, you know. I've had that a couple of times where I host 2 syndicated radio shows, this podcast, and then a daily entertainment headline show. So 4 shows altogether, technically. And there's some days where I have to go, which show is this? What are we doing here? I mentioned now a couple times, social media is not my thing. I have said it on this show many times, and I'm also one of those people who, I wrote a book called Put Down Your Damn Phone already, so I am not attached to my phone 24/7. I am not posting every minute of my day on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram. On Facebook, I kind of will do pictures of the dogs and some pictures from like our radio shows or our travels or whatever it is. Twitter, we are using that for our entertainment headlines and our travel programming and my newspaper column. And people have, well, for years asked me what my Instagram page is or my Instagram handle or username, whatever. And I've always said I don't have one, and people freak out because they're just like, you're in the media and you go to all these red carpet events and destinations and you tape broadcasts everywhere and you don't have Instagram. Instagram is like totally the website for posting photos of everything that you do. And I just said, again, I'm not one of those people who takes pictures and then thinks to, you know, run them onto the internet. I don't. So I reluctantly, hesitantly signed up for Instagram this week. Now, I was told, by the way, we do have one at Speak Free Media, which hasn't been used in a couple of years, just because, again, I have no interest in promoting it or I don't even remember it. But I signed up for Instagram at Jeremy D. Bradley, and I have to say, I'm certainly not addicted to it, but I'm enjoying the fact that I can post photos, and people on there are basically looking for photos. That's kind of the purpose of Instagram, at least my understanding of it is anyway. And so I don't have to worry about like content and links and all these other stuff. I can just put 20 hashtags and people are finding it. So in that respect, it's interesting. I'm, again, not used to having to go through like a whole bunch of steps just to upload one photo. With Twitter, you can, on a BlackBerry anyway, with the app that I have, and with Facebook, it's just very quick to post a photo. So there's a few more steps, right? Because you got the filters and everything on Instagram. But I'm enjoying it. I don't have very many followers, but I'm also not a numbers whore when it comes to things like that. I was impressed that I had almost 200 after a few days, and that's just from me posting vacation pictures and pictures of my dogs. So follow along again at Jeremy D. Bradley. Like I said, don't expect anything groundbreaking or riveting from me, but we have 12 years of radio programming and photos from red carpet events and our on location broadcasts from all over North America. We've got thousands of photos that we'll be sharing in the next weeks and months and years on Instagram. So figure, hey, here's another platform to push out all of the content, so we will do that. Now, I mentioned vacation photos. I spent 4 days in Palm Springs, and I was pleasantly surprised that I was able to just lay out. Here's the deal. It was 10 years ago when I bought my house, and after I bought my house, you don't move in until, a few weeks later, a month or so, and I thought, this is kind of like my last hurrah before I have this, like, big-time commitment as a homeowner. Like, I really was sort of freaked out. And so I thought, you know what, I'm going to book a trip to Cuba. I booked it on a Thursday, and I flew out on the Sunday. And I hadn't really planned this. I kind of just did it. And I was not able to escape my work mentality, my work life. So I was glued to my computer. I took my laptop, of course. Took my computer. I had a $2,000 cell phone bill when I came back. Of course, this is before the days of really cheap roaming plans or long distance. And I was texting and calling. And I really, really racked up the bill. Seriously, $2,000. Now, thankfully, the phone company called me when I got back, and they covered half of it. And then, because it was technically work covered another, well, they covered a quarter of it, and then I took care of another quarter of it. So I only had to pay $500 for my phone bill after Cuba. But what my point was that I was so bored, and everybody wants to take, like a week vacation, 2 weeks, do whatever, and just lay out and do nothing or sightsee. And for me, we've traveled so much with our radio shows that I'm used to, when I'm going somewhere, having to go, right? We wake up at like 7 o'clock, we have breakfast at 8, we're to the first location at 9 o'clock, we're taping the segment, we're on to the next one at 10:30, on to the next one at noon, on to the next one at 3, and they're just very long days. So I'm used to a trip being like that, where there's really no downtime. And when we had our 10th anniversary broadcast for one of the shows in Puerto Vallarta, we've gone there every year, and the tourism folks had arranged about a 3-hour break one afternoon, and they kind of said, you know what, just take the afternoon to yourself, lay out by the pool, have a drink, whatever. I couldn't. I was up, I went into my room, I went back down to the pool, walked to the beach, and then I walked back to the pool, and then I went back to my room. And so I wasn't sure how I would be able to fare with 4 days in Palm Springs. It was a cheap flight, return. I stayed at a beautiful resort. They put me up for nothing. Great people at the Santiago resort. And my fear, and I took my computer, my fear was that my computer's going to be open and on my bed from the second I get to the room, and I'm going to be so consumed with checking in at the office and watching the entertainment headlines, because, I'm an entertainment reporter, and I'm going to be, my luck, there's going to be some big celebrity scandal or death or something, and I'm going to have to jump into work anyway. My computer stayed in my bag the whole time. I did not pull it out. And this resort was just really nice to go have breakfast and then lay out by the pool for 3-4 hours. The sun went behind the mountains. The pool was very warm, so you go have a nice little splash and then go for dinner. And then I was in bed by almost 9 or 10 o'clock every day. Really, I didn't go to the bars. I honestly really didn't leave the resort very much, aside for one time when I went out for dinner. Other times I just had food delivered. And it was so great because, again, like I said, I'm not one of those people who's attached to my phone. I really, I don't have it with me 24/7. So it was just nice to leave that in the room and go and lay out. They had some really nice music playing, and I went and there was lemonade, and it was really relaxing. And so I was surprised that I was able to just lay out and do nothing for 4 days. It was great. I enjoyed it. Now, here's the thing. I believe that I've got that taste of freedom that I'm going to constantly, now I'm going to be addicted to vacationing. Like, now I'm going to have to go back, and I'm going to have to, take another trip and again and again and again. And I think I'm just going to become lazy now. That's what I think the problem is going to be. Anyway, so I was able to do it for 4 days. So, yeah. Again, you're probably listening to this going, okay, wow, you're excited that you just spent 4 days vacationing? Okay, great. But that's a big deal for me. It really is. If you're a workaholic, like I am, it's tough. So again, thanks to our friends at the Santiago Resort in Palm Springs. Thank you so much for having me. When we come back, we're going to talk about the Spice Girls reunion and all these revivals that are happening on the Scribble.
It's never too early to start thinking about your next holiday. Have you checked out Mexico recently? From tequila tasting, swimming with horses, to ziplining through the jungle and watching whales and dolphins in their natural habitat, Puerto Vallarta has it all. Visit mexico.jbonair.com to see all the fun PV has to offer. That's at mexico.jbonair.com for hundreds of photos, interviews, and videos from around the tourist hotspot. Check out mexico.jbonair.com for all the fun. That's mexico.jbonair.com.
Isn't it crazy that you wait for payday, but before you know it, you're strapped for cash again? It's time to stop blowing your money and become a smart spender with the book, The Official Guide to Being an American Cheapskate, at cheapskatebook.com. Learn simple ways to cut costs at home every day and during special times of the year. Don't go broke at Christmas. Don't remortgage the house for a fancy vacation. The book is filled with tips to save you money throughout the year. Check out the best-selling book, The Official Guide to Being an American Cheapskate, at cheapskatebook.com or on Amazon and iTunes.
Jeremy Bradley here on The Scribble again at thescribbleshow.com, SoundCloud, iTunes. If you have not subscribed, please do so. Would love to have you chime in week after week. And again, my email address is live@jbonair.com, live@jbonair.com. Well, the Spice Girls announced earlier in the week that they are back together. They're going to be touring through the UK and the US. Everybody's back on board. Posh, Victoria Beckham, we're hearing, was sort of a holdout, and there's a talk that she's not going to have to sing. She could just sort of come out there and pose, which is sort of what she did anyway. She wasn't the best singer, and we're not quite sure exactly why she reportedly was a holdout at the very beginning. It could be that she wanted family time and she wanted to focus on her fashion line. But also hubby David Beckham, soccer superstar, right? He's had the spotlight for so long, and we're hearing through tabloid reports that Victoria kind of wanted to get back into the spotlight herself. She wanted to be the star in the family. And again, with the option of not having to sing, and you can basically just go out there and either lip sync or have somebody else do your lines, and you can just pose like she used to. Well, why not, right? And obviously, we have seen a lot of this revival, even in terms of Backstreet Boys and New Kids on the Block and NSYNC. There's talk right after Timberlake did the Super Bowl. There's talk that NSYNC is going to get back together, and we see it on TV shows, right, with Will and Grace and Roseanne and all of these shows from the past that are coming back. And to me, it's funny because what that says to me is that the public doesn't like the new crap that's been coming out. They prefer, I was going to say the word quality, but I mean, again, that's debatable depending on what your tastes are, right? Roseanne, if you didn't find the show funny, you have to admit that it was very good writing. Same thing with Will and Grace. It was very smartly scripted. And same thing with the songs of Backstreet Boys and Spice Girls and NSYNC and everybody else, is that they were big back in the day. Did they have the best vocal range and the best vocal? Well, no, but they were catchy songs, and there was something about them that people liked. And it's funny to see that the mainstream public is going back to that now. Now, obviously, it's targeting the generations that they grew up with, right? So people that are my age, 35 and, well, let's say 30 to 37, were into the Spice Girls and Backstreet Boys, and we were growing up. And now we're back into it in our 30s. Now, with the Spice Girls, they're not apparently going to be recording any new music. They will be having a greatest hits album. Basically, I said greatest hits, by the way, not greatest tits. I know what it sounded like, but I said greatest hits. But again, I think it's going to be one of those things where we saw them at the Olympics in London. They kind of got together for that, and now they're doing a tour. I imagine it will sell out in most of the cities because people just want to see them. Are they going to sound the same? Probably not, unless they're lip syncing, right, or using vocal tracks. But I think it's just that it's going to take you back. It's that nostalgia of times gone by. I was a teenager when these groups were out, and I don't think they're coming to my city. But if I'm in a city where they're going to be performing, I would go. Why not, right? I know my brother had gone to see, was it Backstreet Boys? Or New Kids on the Block. One of them, anyway, came to our hometown, and my brother said that he went, and he watched these, 40-year-old guys try to be what they used to be on stage and dancing around, and it kind of wasn't there. So he was sort of disappointed by it. He was kind of like, oh, well, you know what, it really wasn't as good as it could have been. Sure, it was great to see them, but they tried. And I guess that's really all you can ask. Again, it's the same thing like when you go to see Mariah Carey or Britney Spears in one of their concerts. You're going there to see the spectacle, right? You know that they can sing. You're just, you know that Britney's going to be dancing around so much that she couldn't possibly sound that great while she's dancing, right? And you just kind of expect that. You just know that that's going to happen. But again, you're there for the visual. You're there to see it. So, tell me if you're interested, if you would go and see the Spice Girls. If they're coming to your city, if they're coming to your town, would you go see them in concert? And which band or group or even TV show, since we're on that subject, which would you want to see or hear have a comeback? Is there a TV show from the past? I know that I would love to see Golden Girls come back, but unfortunately, it's only Betty White who's around now. I would also like to see Married with Children. You remember that show on Fox. But again, comedy has changed so much that everybody's offended by everything that show just wouldn't be the same either. Because you remember Al Bundy making all those jokes about fat women and, well, really that was it. And the slut jokes about Kelly Bundy. And you just can't do that anymore on television because society is just very, very uptight. So that's a show that I would like to see, but I just know that it wouldn't come back anyway. Anyway, send me an email, live@jbonair.com, live@jbonair.com.
Ever had something to get off your chest but never had the balls to say it? That's a load of crap. Speak Free with JB.com is exactly what you've been waiting for. Your chance to tell it like it is and not care what anybody else thinks. Have your say on issues of the day. Join newspaper and radio columnist Jeremy Bradley as he tells it like it is. Hundreds of thousands of people have stopped by, including some well-known celebrities who have had a chat with JB and speak candidly about what's really going on in the world. You can join them too. Have a rant or a rave. Be brave and head on over to www.speakfreewithjb.com now.
JB here, back on the Scribble again. thescribbleshow.com and SoundCloud and iTunes. Well, I totally misjudged how long it would take me to tell those stories because we have about 5 minutes left. But like I said, there's a list of other stuff to talk about. I am very rarely speechless, ladies and gentlemen, so there's even more to tell you about. Do you ever feel that you have an instant bond with somebody just because they have the same name as you? A couple of months ago, when my friend was coming in to town for Christmas, I had arranged a welcome letter from our city's mayor. The mayor had sent a nice welcome letter for him. And the mayor's, in the communication department, there's somebody named Jeremy. And when I called him and then I left him a voicemail, and then also emailed him, and it's happened a couple of other times. There's publicists that have the same name as me, first name, and I almost kind of feel like we have an instant bond where it's like, oh, hey, Jeremy, my name is Jeremy Bradley, and I'm calling about, right? Like, you kind of also have to make a joke just because it sounds weird. Oh, hi, it's Jeremy here. Oh, hi, Jeremy. Oh, hi, Jeremy. How's it going? And so, and I kind of feel this, like, this kinship, this brotherhood with somebody who has the same name as me. I don't know, and I feel like I'm nicer to somebody who, just because they have my name. Do you agree? I want to know your thoughts on this one. Maybe I'm generally polite anyway, but tell me if you if somebody has the same name as you, do you talk differently to them? Do you treat them differently? Send me an email, live@jbonair.com. I know it's a very bizarre question, but I really want to know. I really want to know. Because could you imagine, like, telling off somebody with your name? Go to hell, Jeremy. Right? Like, it just seems strange that way. I don't know. I think it does. Again, live@jbonair.com. A lot of people like popping bubble wrap, right? You just get such a gratifying feeling. I got an email from a listener who was telling me about office annoyances. We were talking on the radio show a couple of weeks ago about things that people do in the office that really piss you off. And she was telling me that there's somebody who, on a regular basis, gets whatever packages, whatever deliveries, and they will have bubble wrap. And she will sit at her desk and just pop this, but casually as she's doing whatever she's doing on her computer or whatever the task is. And she doesn't realize that everybody in the area can hear it, and it's really annoying. And so finally somebody I don't remember, what was the... Oh, I'm going to confuse it. She talked about how a bunch of them were discussing this, and they said one day one of us is going to lose it and just freak out on the woman. And so eventually somebody started to shush her. That's what it was. And then she kind of got the hint after a while. And then the woman went around asking, like, oh, were you hearing that? Like, when I was doing that? Oh my God, I'm so sorry. And she was really embarrassed. It's like, it's bubble wrap in an open office. You don't think people are going to hear that? Like, seriously, come on, you idiot. Anyway, that's it. So what are some office annoyances that you might have? Send me an email, live@jbonair.com. Let's do a quick shout out to Twitter.
We hear you chirping. Get scribbling. Tweet up the Scribble at The Scribble Show. Join the discussion with Jeremy Bradley. It's all going down right now on Twitter @The Scribble Show and @thescribbleshow.com.
Thank you very much, Larson. We're back here on The Scribble in our final remaining moments. We've got about a minute and a half left. Remember, I'm live tweeting The Bachelor on Monday nights, and I also previewed the Bachelor Winter Games episode. that show. Everybody's trying to compete against the Olympics. CBS has Celebrity Big Brother, and I'm going to put celebrity in quotation marks because they're really not. And ABC is, as I said, doing Bachelor Winter Games. So follow along on Twitter. I am at Jeremy D. Bradley. Also Twitter and Instagram at Jeremy D. Bradley. Both platforms at Jeremy D. Bradley, and feel free to follow along, chime in. And I always say, if you don't appreciate sarcasm and slut shaming and bachelor shaming, then don't follow along. If you're that uptight, I don't want to hear from you. I don't want you to follow me. I don't want you, because people will often go and say, wow, you're so miserable watching the show. Why do you watch it? Because I am being paid a fortune to watch TV and tweet, my friends. There you go. Feel free to give me a shout anytime. It's always awesome hearing from you. The email address, once again, is live@jbonair.com. Live@jbonair.com. My name is Jeremy Bradley. This is The Scribble. Talk to you next week. Bye-bye, everybody.
Want more Scribble? Check out thescribbleshow.com for past shows, celebrity interviews, cheapskate tips, and more. That's at thescribbleshow.com and on Twitter at The Scribble Show. The Scribble is a speak-free media presentation.
If you want some real heat